Heard two talks already on this talk because the other sites have been not in alignment with us. We've been talking in the lead up to the 50th anniversary, some of the things that are on the hearts of the pastoral team. We've been wanting to share that, and so for 2 weeks we've been talking about that, and this week we touch on another topic. But 2 weeks ago we talked about GDOs. You might remember that. God-desired outcomes. That God desires outcomes for his church. And we want to know what those are clearly. We want to name them. We want to start measuring them and be held accountable to what they are. And so we talked about that. Last week, Phil picked up on one of those specifically and talked about membership and talked about this sense of belonging that, very much God wants us to belong to the local church. And so we want to start talking about that and measuring that and making sure we're held accountable to that. This sense of belonging. Today I want to talk about something that is very important, values. Talking about the pastoral team and the things that we value. Now, who's had value seminars and talks and discussions at their workplace? If you're part of a government department, I'm sure you get a memo every now and then, about remember these are the core values of the organisation. And this. Now, we all know they're a bit of a joke, don't we? Really, yeah. I mean, how some businesses can honestly put integrity in their core values, I have no idea. It's like, well, I better not name the company. It's like the company that says, we put customers first. All that means is we treat our staff like rubbish because it's all about the customer. We don't care about our staff. Now, I'm being facetious a little bit. But, values, they're a bit of a joke, and they're talking about, core values. Is there any place to talk about that in church? Should we be talking about that, or is that corporate? Is that business world? That's just government that talks about values. I mean, can we talk about values as a church? Should we? And is it important? Well, I say yes. Now, I'll illustrate this to you through a story. I was part of a church, not this church. Let me be very clear, I could mention lots of stories from this church about this topic, but I won't. This is a previous church. It was actually an Anglican church I was part of, and I was part of the diaconate. And the diaconate group, which is the main leadership group in that church, it was presented with a problem. The problem was this. There were people in the church who couldn't participate in communion. They literally were unable to participate. Why? They could hear the words, they could mean it, they were part of it. But when it came to drinking the cup, they couldn't do it. Because that church, for years and years and years, had purchased these big glass vats, like they were made by monks, of fortified wine. And so they used alcohol in the communion. And there were some people who were recovering alcoholics that just said, sorry, I can't participate. There were some who just objected to alcohol. There were others who, if they did drink it, it would give them headaches. And it just was not a safe drink or option to use for everyone that was present. And so this problem was presented to the church. Now, I'll stop right there before I move on with the story. Have you already worked out what you would do to fix this problem? Now, hold that thought. Okay? Because I went to this meeting thinking, easy solution. I know what we'll do. This is easy to fix. Because obviously everybody in that room, everyone in the diaconate, everybody wanted everyone to be included. No one wanted to exclude anybody. We all had a common goal. We all wanted a win-win. Of course we want everyone to be part of communion. But then I made the suggestion, how about we get rid of the fortified wine and replace it with grape juice, non-alcoholic wine that everybody can drink. Now, instead of looking around the room and everyone going, yeah, great suggestion. Yep, let's go with that. I did not know the fight I was in for. I could not believe, I left scratching my head, and I'm sure you've done this at times too. Why am I surrounded by idiots? Like, can they not see? What is wrong with these people? Why can't we all be on the same page? It baffled me. It wasn't until years later that I worked out what the problem was. So I went, that's what was happening there. We all agreed on the facts. We all agreed on people's stories. And we weren't denying that people weren't drinking it. We all could see what we wanted to achieve, but how to get there. We couldn't agree how to get there. Why? Because we were clinging on to different values. It was a values problem. You see, there were some people in the group who were clinging on to this value, this deeply held belief that they wouldn't let go of, that was so important to them that we have to be biblical, James. This is a matter of being biblical. And I'm thinking, sorry, what? Well, the Bible says that Jesus passed wine to the disciples. And so we have to drink. He didn't pass juice, he passed wine. We have to drink wine. I said, do you call that fortified wine? Do you call that wine? Like, are you kidding me? It's disgusting. And secondly, and be consistent then. Why are we serving Baker's Delight bread rolls then with the wine? Where's the unleavened bread? Like, come on, be consistent, people, if you're going to do the biblical. Come on. But I couldn't deny the fact, like, biblical. There were others who were going, James, this is a people problem. You can't just change it. I'm going, I know it's a people problem. I'm wanting to change it for the people who can't drink it. Oh, no. But these people, that if you went and changed it, it would disrupt it. For years we have served this and it would change, and people are not comfortable with change, and we need stability and strength. Like Jane, you can't let go of that. That's very important. And I realised we're all just clinging on to different values. And the problem with values is we never speak about them. We never name them. We never state them out loud. We all have them. In fact, if I asked you, what are your values? What are your values? What's important to you? I'll give you a definition for values. Value is this. If I start not on the conclusion page. Values are deeply held principles that we treasure with uncompromising belief. You like that? I like it. Deeply held principles that we treasure with uncompromising belief. These are things we cling to, that we hold to, that we will not let go of. They're so important to us, and yet often we have no idea why they're important, why we've held on to them, why we've picked them, and we can't even verbalise them. But they influence every decision and every action that we ever make. So is it important to talk about values? I think so. Because I don't want to be part of a team, and this is the pastoral team we're at. We don't want to be part of a team where we can't even decide whether we serve alcoholic or non-alcoholic juice with communion. Well, it's not a debate we want to have. Like, why? Let's talk about what's important to us. And I'll highlight this. Which of these stands out to you? Tradition versus modern. Are you drawn to one of those? Which one? Do you think everybody should be drawn to that one? Biblical versus practical. Caution versus risk. Stability versus change. I mean, there's lots of words we could put up, isn't there? And we can go, oh, no, that one. And we'd all be unique. We'd all be different. And so we think it's important to talk about values. And as a team, we have had a lot of conversation, a lot of prayer, a lot of thinking, a lot of research, a lot of study, a lot of arguing to come. And today I want to present to you 5 core values that the pastoral team hold. These aren't, we're not saying these have to be yours, these are the new church values, but they are the pastoral team. When we think about church and Mosaic and our ministry and what we're about as a church, as a pastoral team, these are things we are deeply committed to. So I want to present those today for us to reflect upon. And as we do that, I want us to be asking and thinking about, do I care about that? Is that important to me? Is that something I would deeply hold on to and treasure with uncompromising belief? Is that something I would do? So I'm going to go through the 5. It's only 5. I'm not going to spend long on each one. I think Phil said, you only got, even if you spend 3 minutes on each, that's 15 minutes. I said, whoa, gee whiz, I better get a move on them. So, value number 1, Jesus front and centre. Now, I thought I'd start with the most shocking one for you all, the one that we go, oh my goodness, like what? James, I never thought that would be a value in a church. Jesus front and centre. Surprise, surprise, we value Jesus. So Jesus front and centre. Nothing matters more. There's a quote I came across from Jeff Bezos. He's the founder of Amazon. He was the richest man in the world. He's now only third. Poor him. Richest billionaire in the world. He has a quote about this. He says this: "There are many ways to centre a business. You can be competitor focused, you can be product focused, you can be technology focused, you can be business model focused, and there are more. But in my view, obsessive customer focus is by far the most protective of day one vitality." Now, day one vitality to him is basically, in a business environment, you have to act as if today is day one. There's got to be life and vigour. You can't just become complacent. So it's always day one. And so he's saying, if you focus on customers, that's how we'll be the best company ever. Now, we don't do that as a church. The church doesn't focus on customers. The church doesn't focus on a business model. We're not pursuing Baptist. That's how we're going to be number one, by pursuing our brand. We're not focusing on a product even. We don't even... Well, actually, I thought about this morning, and it got booed at the 8:45 service. It said, we don't even focus on profits. And I thought, actually... Depends how you spell it, I guess, doesn't it? We do. We focus on a profit. The church exists because of Jesus. Our focus is entirely on the person of Jesus Christ. He is front and centre. There is nothing more important than Jesus Christ. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't exist. We wouldn't even be gathering. And so Jesus is front and centre. There's nothing more important to us than that. John's Gospel, chapter 14, verse 6 says this: Jesus told him, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me." It reminded me of that old hymn, without the way there is no going. That's right. Without the way there is no going. Without the truth there is no knowing. Without the way, the life there is no living. Without Jesus, there's none of these things. He is front and centre. I want to unpack that just a little bit. I want to talk about three things about Jesus. I want to talk about the words, the works, and the ways of Jesus. That these are important. When we talk about Jesus front and centre, we're talking about his words. So Jesus came and obviously spoke a lot of things. And what he said carries weight. There's authority behind what he says. In fact, we believe that the very words he spoke are the words of God. And so we should pay attention to them. And so you can open up your Bible, and if you've got a cool Bible like mine, you'll see all the red words are Jesus' words. They're direct quotes from Jesus. And but we're not going to pull out all the red words and go, let's focus on that. Because there's more to Jesus than just his words, aren't they? As important as they are, there's his works as well. They're the things he did. He healed people. He cast out demons. He broke down cultural barriers. He challenged the status quo. He established a community. He invested in people's lives. There's things that he did that we want to also look at and go, wow, that's important. We want to do the things Jesus did as well. Not just hear what he had to say. We want to do what he did as well. But there's a third category here I want to really highlight because I think it's important. And it's the way of Jesus. Have you ever met someone who's told the truth, but you don't want to accept it, you don't want to believe it because it's just ugly truth? Or they might be speaking the truth to you, but it's not in love. There's anger there, and you can speak truth, but you can speak it in so many different ways, can't you? And so we need to not just look at what Jesus said, but we need to look at how he said it, the way he did it. So when we look to Jesus, we want to look at the love that he had, the way he spoke to people. We want to look at the way he treated others, the way he conducted himself in his life. That's important, just as important as what he said and what he did. And so when we talk about Jesus, we're talking about all of Jesus, the whole package, his words, works, and ways. And so that's value number one, Jesus front and centre. That should shape everything if we focus on following Jesus. Number two, though, all about the other. And again, I'm asking you to think, are these things I deeply, deeply cling to? All about the other. I want you to think of the life of Jesus for a minute. Was his time spent pursuing his own interests or the interests of others? It's not a trick question, is it? The answer should come to mind pretty quickly. Well, that's easy. Others. Jesus was always about others. Jesus came to lay down his life for others, in fact. In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 20, 25 to 28, he says this. But Jesus called them together and said, "You know that the rulers in this world lord it over their people, and officials flaunt their authority over those under them. But among you it will be different. Whoever wants to be a leader among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first among you must become your slave. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many." Powerful words. God incarnate, God himself in the flesh saying, "I didn't come to be served, I came to serve. I didn't come to lord it over you, which is my, and let's face it, which is my birthright. You should all worship me. I deserve all authority and glory, but I don't even come to do that. And if the master comes, the teacher comes to serve, then what should we do? We should serve. We should seek to put others first." Now, the question that comes with that, of course, is, but James, if I'm busy just doing everything for everybody else, won't I be neglected? Won't I? Surely we need to put ourselves first sometimes. And did Jesus strike you as an unhealthy individual? No, I think he was pretty well balanced, wasn't he? He was able to give himself to the service of others because he didn't neglect himself. And say, no, this isn't a call, it's all about the other. It's not say you completely forget about yourself. No. It's saying his motive, his goal, the things he strived for, all about the other, putting others first. To do that, you need to be healthy and in tune with God. And our other values will speak to that a little bit. But I think this one's particularly important because we as believers, as Baptists, one of our core distinctives, one of the things that sets us apart from other denominations, churches, is our strong belief in the priesthood of all believers. What does that mean? It basically means we believe each and every person is a priest. We believe that you are able to commune with God directly without anyone intervening, that you can speak to him, pray to him, hear from him, you can read the word yourself, you don't need anyone to mediate between you and God, that we're all priests. And so everybody... Mandy says, "There's something wrong with you, James, you're getting tongue-tied today." And I said, "I don't know, maybe I'm tired." I just realised I jumped entire point. All about the other. It is all about the other. And so forget what I just said, okay? Because that's my next point. It's all about the other. There's a paragraph that Andrew Robb over at Evatt, pastor at Evatt, he wrote under this, which I think is worth reading just word for word. "We hope people will experience the abundant welcome and humility of Jesus in all their interactions with us. As we genuinely seek to love and serve others, we will champion a high invitation, come as you are culture, which is inclusive and non-judgmental at its core." Because when we say other, which other? Is it just those others? Those others? No. It's all others. It's about the other. Who's that? Everyone. And so there is no exclusion in that statement. And so that's something we feel is very important for us as a team. Which now brings me back to the third one. Everyone gets to play. I like the wording of this. I like play. I like fun. Everyone gets to play, which is why we believe in the priesthood of all believers. You all see where it fits now. We all are called to serve. And I can't help but think of the body metaphor in the scriptures when we talk about this, that where everyone gets to play. I'm drawn to Corinthians chapter 12, where Paul will talk about the church being like a body. And he'll say this in verse 18 to 21. "But our bodies have many parts, and God has put each part just where he wants it. How strange a body would be if it had only one part. Yes, there are many parts, but only one body. The eye can never say to the hand, I don't need you. The head can't say to the feet, I don't need you. And the metaphor gets even weirder. You'll see, isn't it odd that an eye would say, I wish I was a hand, and a foot that says, I wish I was an ear. That's just silly talk. In other words, all of us have a different part to play. So while everyone gets to play, we all get to do different things. And we all get to do different things that complement others. And it takes us all doing our thing for the body to be complete and healthy and whole. And so when we say everyone gets to play, we don't just mean there's an opportunity, we mean we actually need everyone to play. Everyone gets to play, everyone should be playing, everyone can play because God has equipped you and called you and has a place for you within the body. You just need to find where that is. And as leaders, as pastors, we want to help people find where that is. And we want to make it easy for you to be able to do that very thing. And so everyone gets to play. Number 4, and again, these things I hold deeply. Costly faith. When I asked my boys which one of these 5 stand out, they both went, this one, costly faith. Costly faith. If you're familiar with Dietrich Bonhoeffer's writings and books, you might be familiar with a term, cheap grace. So cheap grace is what sometimes the church can talk about. And cheap grace sounds like this. God's blessed you and done everything for you. You don't need to do a single thing to receive God's blessing and God's grace to you and the gift of salvation. He's done it all the work. And so you don't need to do anything. You just need to accept it. And that's all you need to do. That's kind of cheap grace. Because grace that doesn't call me, a gift that doesn't really mean much to me, a gift that doesn't change my life forever, is a pretty worthless gift. I got in trouble in the morning service because I used an illustration from Father's Day. And I had a few people go, I saw your son up the back. I'm sure he'd be offended. And I reassured them. I said, I made it up, okay? It was on the spur of the moment. I just made it up. Here was the story. Father's Day, I got a pair of socks from the kids. There's socks I'm never going to wear. Now, obviously, I will wear any socks. I'm going to have pink flamingo socks today that were Father's Day gifts. I'm not too proud that I won't wear crazy socks. But the illustration was this. If my kids give me a pair of socks and I go, thanks very much, and I chuck them in the drawer and I never wear them again, that's just cheap grace. That's a cheap gift. That's just like a gift that makes no difference to me at all. It's like, yeah, thanks for the gift. And on I go with the rest of my life, and I never think about it again. Costly faith, though, is in response to a gift that is life-changing. A gift that is so transformational that it impacts every aspect of my life from this point forward. And if we truly believe God has gifted us with salvation, gifted us with freedom, gifted us with relationship with himself, we didn't earn that, it was just a gift. But that kind of gift changes us forever. And it costs us something. It costs you something to be a follower of Jesus. We'll make 2 points on this. The cost is to believe in the promises of God. So in John 15, verse 9 to 13, I've loved you even as the Father has loved me. Remain in my love, Jesus says. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love, just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I've told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. And this is my commandment. Love each other in the same way I have loved you. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. So when you obey my commandments, you remain in my love. Just as I've obeyed the Father, you should too. Like there is a cost to coming into a relationship. There's an impact this gift has on our life. And it calls us into a place of obedience and into a place where we believe the promises of God and we act on them. Now that's going to look different. And here's the second thing I want to say about it. The cost to each of us is going to be unique. So Abraham, the cost to him, he was called to leave his home and to leave everything he knew and to go to a new land and start afresh. For Noah, the cost to him was to build an ark. For Moses, the call was to go and confront a nation. For David, he was called, the cost to him was to go and slay a giant. For Jesus, the cost was to go and lay down his life and die on a cross. For you, the cost is, what is the cost? What's God calling you to in obedience? Now, why is this a value? I mean, James, aren't you just stating a truth? Isn't this just saying, why is that a value? Why is that something we deeply hold to be true? Costly faith. Because we could simply just acknowledge this and go, well, oh yeah, I guess it's a reality of what it means to be Christian. But we don't just want to accept it, we actually want to embrace it. We want to embrace the fact that, yeah, this faith is costly. This is life-changing. It calls me to something, and I think that's important. And just as Jesus shares in a parable, you know, who comes to build a house and doesn't first work out the budget and work out whether you can afford it or not? They add up how much it's going to cost, and then they go, okay, yeah, and I'm willing to pay that to get the end result. And so we say, yeah, embrace that. It is costly. It calls us to more than ourselves. There's a tagline under this one that helps explain it a little more. So costly faith, the gospel always disrupts our status quo. The gospel always disrupts our status quo. To follow Jesus means your life is going to be turned upside down a little bit in lots of ways. And that's not something to run from. It's not something to, why God? It's something to embrace and something to pursue. Why? Because he says, I've told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. If we do this, just see the difference it makes. See the joy that it brings to our life to walk and live a life in obedience to Christ. So costly faith. And lastly, love this one, keeping pace with Jesus. Keeping pace with Jesus. Matthew 11:28-30. Then Jesus said, come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light. I love that. Take off your heavy load that you're carrying. I was talking to someone at the first service who said they've just retired. And of course, they retired, and what happened in the next month? They fell sick. They've struggled with illness. Why? Because we go all the time. The burden's so heavy. And the minute we do take it off and go, all of a sudden the body goes, now I can rest. And it just lets go. Like, who's ever gone on holidays and get sick on holiday? Happens all the time, doesn't it? Because we carry so much, and all of a sudden you stop and rest, and it's like, and then I get the cold, and I'm sick, and I feel awful. I mean, we just go. Here Jesus is saying, take off that heavy yoke you're carrying yourself, all the stuff you think you need to do, and put my burden on. Carry my yoke. And there's a beautiful image here of the yoke. So when you, not nowadays, we don't tend to cultivate fields with oxen. But if you, back in Jesus' day, were ploughing land, you'd have your plough and you'd have it hooked up to two ox. And the oxen would have this wooden bar over their necks that you'd chain to them, and the hoe, and so they would pull on that, and that's the yoke. And when you were training someone, a young bull, to pull on the plough in the field, do you think you get two fresh young bulls and put them together and say, okay, I'm going to train you to pull? Well, no, because they don't know how to. So they just go. They go hard, and they just don't stop. And by lunchtime, they're exhausted, and you've got to rest. And you're like going, oh, my goodness. It takes a while to train an oxen to be able to persevere and to be able to do a full day's work consistently. And so what they would do was get a young bull, and they would pair it up with an old, mature bull. Someone who knows the pace you've got to work at. And so as the young bull's pulling, the old one just stays the course. And it has to keep pace with the old one. And so it's not that Jesus isn't saying, take off your yoke, and don't worry, I'll give you one where you don't have to work. No. He's saying, keep pace with me. Keep pace with me. I found this a remarkable thought. That did you know that God moves at different speeds? I think this was transformational for me at one point. Did you know God moves at different speeds? Because I'm telling you, for years I thought God was just 100% flat chat, go. And I just had to keep up. Ever been there? So that the harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. Come on, work, get to it, go, serve, get involved, hurry up, do. It took years to realise that actually no, Jesus isn't all go. It's not all fast. Faster is not better than slower. Action is not better than rest. They're just different states of being. And there are times where God calls us to rest and to slow down and to stop and to think and to meditate and to be prayerful and to heal and to come into that place of focusing on identity and being rather than doing. And so we want to keep pace with Jesus. We don't want to be pulling ahead going, come on, Jesus. And he's going, what are you doing? Slow down. And likewise, we don't want to be sitting there while Jesus is going, come on. Yeah. Keeping pace with Jesus. How do we do that? Through prayerful consideration of his leading. Making sure we're praying. Making sure we're seeking God constantly in all things. And so there you've got the 5. 5 things that we as a pastoral team are saying to you. These are things we've discussed and prayed about that we believe are vitally important to us as a team, vitally important to the way we do things, vitally important to how we make decisions and how we think. And actually these things even change how we feel about things as well. Vitally important things to us. I guess the question here, are these important things to you? Because they're a snapshot into the pastoral team where our hearts are and where our heads are at and what we're feeling. And certainly as we're drawing to the end of our first 50 years, we're looking ahead. And we're going, will these things stand the test of time? Will these things be important for the next 10 years, 20 years? I'll say up front, I think some of these things are contextual. I think 100 years ago, some of these things you wouldn't need to mention. They were just given. Everyone felt them. I think some of these things are about us and who we are in our cultural context, as busy people, as people who get distracted, as people who can tend to hive off and exclude, where we're so easy to sort of point to others and separate, about coming together, about allowing everyone in. And there's a way I remember this. This is just how I remember it in my head, okay? It always starts with Jesus, okay? So it's all about Jesus. Jesus front and centre. But of course, if you're Jesus focused, he's other focused. So it's all about the other. Which others? Because there's so many others out there. Well, everyone, because everyone gets to play in the kingdom. But let's face it, when you're working with everybody, that can be really annoying and hard sometimes. And so it comes at a cost. It's costly to do this work, which is why it's so important that we keep pace with Jesus. It comes back to Jesus again. It's so important that we're not running ahead, because the cost can feel too much sometimes and we burn out. And the cost, or we're just lazy and not effective and doing what we're called to do. So, with that, I'll wrap that up. The important thing is, and I think these might pop a little more next week as we gather to hear Phil, who will be speaking about the pastoral team's vision, our personal vision for what we are hoping for, what we're aiming for, and what we're working towards. And so some of these will go, that's why. This all sort of works together a bit more. So happy to talk about these afterwards, but right now I'd love to pray for them. Pray a little something for us. So let's just pray together. Father God, we thank you for your word and the way you reveal yourself to us. And we do get to see your heart. We get to see what motivates you. We get to see the things that are so important to you. And while there are so many things that are important to you. And we could have a list of 100 different values that are all just as important and vital to you and your kingdom, and that should be important to us. We could have a massive list there. But Lord, I want to pray that you would just continue to speak to the pastoral team here and the leaders here about what's important and where our focus needs to be for this season, in this time and in this place. And so I pray, Father, that you would help the pastoral team to be of one mind. But my prayer goes beyond them. My prayer goes to all of us, because we know that you desire for us to be one, and that you desire for us to be united. And that means that we love the things you love. We desire the things you desire. We value the things you value. And so I pray in that space you would help us to be a church that comes together in that. That we won't be that church that fights over alcoholic or non-alcoholic wine, or yellow or green chairs, or drums or no drums, or whatever would seek to separate us. But that we would look beyond that, and we would see what's important to one another, and we would be able to come together on those things. Help us to value the things you value, and that we would become one and closer in that space. We commit that to you and commit ourselves to you. And as we draw close to the 50th service next week, that you'd be with us this week, and you would continue to speak to us and shape to us about what's important to us. And that perhaps you'd reveal what we value most. And maybe we would invite you into that space. And we'd ask you to change and shape the things we value. To be at work in there, that we would submit that to you. Bring it into the light. Speak into that space. And give us insight into it, we pray. Amen.